Okay, I've got some new technology for this week. As you can see, I'm trying to use a document scanner. So hopefully that's a little bit more personal for you guys, kind of see some writing, pencil to paper, which is what I hope that you are doing when you're doing this math. So I've got a cool new method to solve quadratic equations. Po-Shen Loh. He's a professor of mathematics at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's an American mathematician and also a coach for an international math competition for younger students. I want to say middle, but also maybe high school. Really brilliant teacher. I'm going to share one of his videos with you, but he's got a way to solve quadratic equations that's sort of an old method that he's kind of revived. And this is the general format. So if you have x squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then you can get the answer in a quicker method than the quadratic formula by taking half of the middle number, squaring it, and subtracting this last value. Those are sort of the operations involved, in addition to plus or minus the square root. So let's just see how this plays out, how it works. We'll solve this example using both techniques, the one that you're used to and the new one. So the new method would say, okay, the answer is half of this middle number divided by 2. So half of 8 is 4. Also notice that the formula itself, get it back on screen, says take the opposite of this sign. So if it's negative here, then the opposite will be positive. So we're just going to have that be positive 4. Plus or minus the square root of this number, which in this case is 4, squared, minus the last number. So it's x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2, so this is 4 plus or minus 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. 4 minus 2 is 2, and those are the answers. So as you can see, just on the paper, it's a little bit less, takes less space than the quadratic formula itself. And it is also, there's no guessing and checking, which is the method I've been using in the past with you to factor, which is still a nice one to know and recognize how it works. Let's just do a quick comparison of those two methods. So if we did the factoring method, so this one up top, that's Po-Shen Loh method, and now we can do what we're used to, which is the factoring, which would be so we would look for multiples of 12 or factors of 12, factor pairs, and we would look for the sum to match the middle number 8. So you have to kind of decide from here x minus 2 and x minus 6, and then each of these factor pairs can be set equal to 0, and so we end up with x equals 2 or x equals 6. A little bit off screen there. Still trying to learn my lighting and all that. So is one method better than the other? I'm not sure if you could say that. If you're used to factoring, then this second method probably looks pretty nice. The Po-Shen Loh method doesn't require any of this part. And that's the part that when I work with students to factor, that's usually the part that's a little bit more difficult, is not necessarily coming up with the factor pair list, but then also determining which factor pair matches to that -8. So the quadratic formula, which is what we knew from before, that's nice because it always works, but it can just be long. Let's take a look at the quadratic formula method. I don't even want to write it out, that's how long it is. Quadratic formula. So that quadratic formula would say it's the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And in our case, what are a, b, and c? Well, a would be 1, b is -8, and c is 12. So you put that into this formula. The opposite of b would be +8 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 64 minus 4 times 1 times 12 divided by 2 times 1. So it's 8 plus or minus, I might need to take a break, this is so long. Well, you've got 4 times 12 is 48. We'll do some side work. 64 minus 48. That's 16 divided by 2. So it's 8 plus or minus 4 divided by 2. 8 plus 4 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 8 minus 4 is 4. Divided by 2 is 2. And you end up with those same answers, 6 and 2, 6 and 2, 6 and 2. So they all work. The one thing that I like about the Poisson-Low method is you kind of have to start with this. If we go way to the top, you notice that there's a 1 in front of the x squared. So the Poisson-Low method does not account for, well, what happens if that leading coefficient is not 1? Well, what you basically do is always set it up so that this is what it looks like. So it looks like x squared plus bx plus c. In fact, the quadratic formula usually has these lowercase letters for a, b, and c. And I'm choosing capital letters because I want to force us to make a equal, or the leading coefficient equal to 1. So we're going to look at a few more examples with just the Poisson-Low method, and that's the method I'd like you to do these homework problems in. So, which will be another attachment on Google Classroom. You'll be able to see that. So let's go to next example. Alright, so 2x squared plus 8x minus 20. Well, the first thing that you'd notice is that 2. In order to use the Poisson-Low method, we need that 2 to be a 1. So basically, just divide everything by 2. That gets it in the correct format. Okay, let me see if I can maybe we can I sneak this so you can see both? I don't know. Pretty close.